Today we sit down with the founder of the COO Alliance, Cameron Herold. Cameron shares his 25 years of mind-shifting experience as a business growth guru, having helped build two $100 million companies by the time he was 42. He's become known around the world as the CEO Whisperer and is helping hundreds of CEOs from 17 countries grow their businesses by growing their seconds in command. Companies are also purchasing his books in bulk for employees to learn from. You may have heard of a few of them: Vivid Vision, Meetings Suck, Free PR, Double Double, and The Miracle Morning. What he did at one company was so impressive, it has become a case study at Harvard Business School. Enjoy the episode. Cameron, welcome to the Entrepreneurs United podcast. Rich and I are so excited to have you here with us today. Can you give us a little bit of background, our audience, a little bit of background of your journey and take us maybe a little bit back to the College Pro First Service days to where you are today with COO Alliance? I know there's a lot of meat there, but give us a quick helicopter of that.
Sure. So I was groomed as an entrepreneur. We grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My brother and sister and I were all raised to be entrepreneurs. We've all run our own companies for 25 years. We were all franchisees at one point of College Pro Painters. I was the first, my brother second, my sister Christy came on third. My sister Christy and I both went on to become GMs for the company. We both actually supervised Kimball Musk at one point. I recruited and trained Kimball, and then my sister got to coach him for his last year as a franchisee. So I opened the West Coast of the United States for College Pro, really learned pretty much everything I know about business at College Pro Painters, is pretty safe to say. The rest came from the experience of doing, but the training programs at College Pro of growing people was really solid. So left there, and a family friend brought me on as a co-owner of an auto body chain, which became Boyd Auto Body in Canada, is Gerber Auto Collision in the US. Gerber went on to become the largest collision repair chain in the world. We took that company public, did some acquisitions, some greenfields. I left there and was hired as the president of a private currency, similar to what Bitcoin is doing today, but we did that 20 years ago.
Wow.
Sold the company in January of 2000, and I joined, I stayed there till October 2000, and then I joined my best friend, Brian. He'd seen me build two companies. We were in a mastermind group called the Entrepreneurs Organization together. Brian had seen me build two companies, and we were in a forum, and he asked me if I would coach him on growing what was the Rubbish Boys. And I said no, but I would kind of be around, and I didn't want to work with him. Helped recruit a guy named Paul Guy to leave College Pro Painters and join Brian as his first franchisee. And then I ended up joining Brian a year later as his COO. I came in as the 14th employee, and when I left 6.5 years later, we had 3,100 employees system-wide. We'd gone from 12 locations to 330. We ranked as the number 2 company in Canada to work for, and we took revenue from 2 million to 106 million in 6 years. And then I left there 14-ish years ago. My son is now working in the trucks at Got Junk, just started 3 weeks ago, which is hilarious. He wasn't even alive when I started building the brand. Wow. I've written 5 books. I've done paid speaking events in 26 countries on 6 continents. I run a podcast called the Second in Command Podcast, and then I have an organization that's exclusively for second in commands called the COO Alliance. That's a bit of a helicopter tour.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you very much for sharing that. And I guess, there's so much to go on that, but has Kimball Musk called you to try and get you in Dogecoin as well? Or is that just Elon pumping that?
Just Elon. I was a reference for Kimball and Elon in their very first round of funding for their first company, Zip2, in January of 95.
Wow.
And they wouldn't back Elon. It was a Kleiner Perkins investment. They would not back Elon because he dropped out of aeronautical engineering, was unproven, was too out of the box. And they wanted to understand the operational experience that Kimball had from College Pro Painters. So College Pro is mentioned in Elon's book because of that introduction. And Kimball called me that night. He's like, I don't know what you told them. I'm like, oh, did it not go well? He goes, no. He goes, we asked for 600 grand. They gave us $3 million, and $3 million back in those days was a lot of money. But they sold the company about 3 or 4 years later for $317 million in cash. And it was the largest all cash transaction in history. So wow. College Pro helped them really kickstart everything that Elon's done.
Yeah, that's amazing when I hear that story and the fact that you're so close ties. So I didn't even know that story. So that's just amazing to me. And I'm just going to stay there for a second because I'm totally fascinated with what's going on right now with private currency and the fact you actually worked in private currency way before the time of crypto, and that's actually happening right now as well. Talk to me a little bit more about what you know in that market, because that's off subject a little bit, but I'm very curious as to any connections you have to private currency.
Well, and Kimball's cousin, Peter Reeve, who built Solar City as their second command, also, his brother was Lyndon, the CEO. They worked for me at College Pro Painters as well. So
Wow.
I just definitely touched that Elon ecosystem. So private currencies really originated outside of like banks, issuing a currency. There's always been these barter exchanges.
Yeah.
And barter exchanges facilitated trade between companies that didn't need what each other had. So as an example, Bose Stereo was a client back in the late 90s in this digital currency company, and they would sell their stereos and accept barter dollars or trade dollars, which was essentially a digital credit in their system. And then they could go spend those dollars on Starwood Hotels or Avis Rent-A-Car or Hard Rock Cafe or advertising. They used to take their credits and spend it on advertising. And then the magazines would have their trade dollars and they would spend it on things. So we got 30,000 companies buying and selling using our currency instead of the US dollar, or as well as, but you could go to Starwood Hotels and use our card 20 years ago. You could go to Avis, Hard Rock Cafe, lots of places and use it. And the company still exists today. Wow. It's now called iTex. It's a publicly traded company. But we printed our own currency. We were like a country. So one of my roles there was to actually oversee the economy and the currency to make sure that we weren't spending it too fast or issuing currency too quickly.
Wow. We have a guest coming on in a couple of weeks that I'm excited to bring on that's in the crypto marketplace. And when you think about how much, especially here in the United States, they're printing money hand over fist, you think about the power of private currency or cryptocurrency relative to the fiat. And it's just going to be a very interesting next 5 to 10 years when you watch that whole thing going. So the fact that you were involved in private currency way before that time is just extremely fascinating.
And that's why I got involved in Bitcoin in 2014. Like you can still see all my posts on Facebook telling people to get involved in Bitcoin. And it's funny, I was getting laughed at by a lot of people for a long time. In fact, one guy out of the house painting industry in California, as part of a group called College Works, he's one of the most senior people there, sent me an email recently and he said, "You were wrong, or you were right, I was wrong." And I emailed him back. I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He goes, "I was very, very wrong. You were very, very right." I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" He goes, "Bitcoin." I'm like, "Oh yeah, you were very wrong."
Yeah.
That was when it was $500 a coin back then. And I started accepting it and then got in deep to Ethereum around 2016 as well. And I've been buying more even today. I just keep buying more.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Maybe for another episode, but certainly something that I'm very fascinated by myself and involved with myself. I just got in a little late in the game, but there's still a long way. So,
yeah.
So you mentioned earlier in your introduction, and probably the company that most of our audience would know the most versus some of these other companies that are fascinating, like iTex and Zip2 and some of the companies you've mentioned before in this conversation is 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Everybody knows 1-800-GOT-JUNK.
Yep.
And the fact that you were very early, second in command with that business as a COO, grew that company, you said, from 2 million to 106 million over, I think, 14 years you were there. Is that?
No, 6 years. I left
6 years, sorry. 6 years, the growth of that business. I mean, that's an amazing journey. Can you take us back a little bit to the growth of 1-800-GOT-JUNK? It's a new concept, I'm assuming. There's a whole bunch of operational things going on. What were some of the keys to the success of that company, and then more specifically, your learnings in that role?
So the first one was, it was not a new idea. Okay. It wasn't like, whoa, we should do junk removal. There were 17,000 independent people with trucks hauling junk when Brian started it. What Brian decided to do was to kind of wrap it in a brand similar to what we did with College Pro Painters or Gerber Auto Collision, was put a brand on a very fragmented industry, make it female friendly, put prices in place where we could become more like the FedEx or the Starbucks of junk removal instead of like the Walmart, right? So we were probably 40% more expensive than every other man with truck that you could get in those days. We obsessed around three things. The first one was how to turn our business into a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. It was a line that I got from Greg Clark at College Pro Painters. To become a strong cult or a culture, you had to be a little bit more than a business and a little bit less than that religion. So we really worked to become a strong culture. And we ended up ranking as the number 2 company in Canada. Second thing that we did was we raised our prices. I did it within my first week of getting there. I got them to raise prices by 40-45% because no one was making money. And it was a memory that I had at College Pro Painters that Jay Hemick, who bought College Pro, said he'd never seen a group of people work so hard to make so little money. The only people making money were the top 30% of the franchisees, but everybody else usually struggled. So I wanted everyone else to do well. So as an example, the people in the trucks, the guys in the trucks are really fraternity guys that are all making $45,000 to $55,000 a year hauling junk and getting a workout in the sun, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're paid well. Our franchisees, we've probably got, I say we, I haven't been there in 14 years. They probably have 30 or 40 franchisees that are all members of the entrepreneur organization because they're doing more than $1 million in revenue. They've got a number of franchisees making $5 million in profit. So we really made sure the franchisees did well, the company did well. And then the third thing was we really leveraged free PR coverage. Again, I learned that at College Pro Painters, that the media is always looking for a story. Just pick up the phone and call them and they'll write about you. They'll put you in TV, whatever. So we landed 5,200 stories about 1-800 Got Junk that were all individual, unique stories in 6.5 years. When I left, Facebook was just starting that month. If we had social media back then as a place to amplify all the stories, the brand would have been, it's now 450 million. It would have been 400 million 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, I certainly remember that. It's funny because the PR came on like crazy. I remember when, certainly being attached to the first service company and knowing a little bit of the history of linkage there. There was a little attention to when Enter Got Junk within people that we knew, and the PR came on like crazy. So that's impressive. And I know you have a book about that called Free PR, which we'll get to in a few minutes. So I want to get to that.
Those were the three flywheels that we really pushed on. Like we obsessed about those three things: keeping prices high, strong cult, and PR.
Yeah. So talk to me real quick about that first one. Little less business, more religion. That is a pretty strong and powerful concept.
It was a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion.
Uh-huh.
So not more religion, but a little bit so almost as if you were like a religious cult, right?
Yes.
But not quite, right? So just don't cross that. And normal businesses are boring. So we had to hire people that wanted to be a part of a group. They had to be high in affiliation. We had to hire people that were good leaders, that were strong, charismatic people, that were drivers, that were team players, that would show up at all of our company events. We branded everything. We hired this group of people that were these entrepreneurial zealots that wanted to build this core purpose and build our vivid vision. And when we found the more that we brought in those people, the more that we pushed away the non-culty people, right? We pushed away the people that didn't want to be a part of this big tribe, which just made it even stronger. We would have like, hey, we're getting together after dinner for drinks. It was like everybody showed up. We didn't have to tell them to. They wanted to.
So you said you were looking for people that had high affiliation, team players, leaders, and entrepreneurs themselves. And that was who you identified. Can you describe what was the culture that you were trying to develop, and how did you go about developing it other than selecting the right people?
It was an entrepreneurial culture of building a globally admired brand. So we wanted to build this globally admired brand, and it was a work hard. I used to call it work hard, play hard, but results first. That we really drove hard on results. We were very entrepreneurial. It was kind of a bob and weave, right? Like if the system's not there, make one up, and if the system is there, use it. But we recruited people that were all a part of that. We recited all of our mantras constantly, like plan, brief, execute, debrief, and what are your top 5 and who's doing what by when. We had all these mantras that we would repeat that became part of the culture or the DNA. And because that culture was so strong, it repelled people. It pushed them away from the company, which only brought in more and more of those people that kind of waved the flag.
Were there any times that the culture needed a boost? And if there was a time like that, how did you give it what it needed?
Well, so I was there during the rapid growth, right? From when we had 6 consecutive years of 100% revenue growth. So the culture shifts that we needed to make were making sure that politics didn't come into the picture. So like anybody who was political got fired fast, right? It was just not okay. Any breach of the core values, people would get fired fast. Like they're either core values or they're not. They're not harshly core values. I still remember College Pro's core values from, I left 24 odd years ago, was deliver what you promise, respect the individual, pride in all you do, and find a better way. And that, but I lived those things, right? So we didn't really need to make any culture shifts, or it was just that obsession around doing it all the time that it just became we were like a magnet in Vancouver where the head office was. There were only 4 companies you wanted to work for: Lululemon, Vancouver Olympics, 1-800-GOT-JUNK, or Intrawest that owned Whistler Blackcomb. That was it. Everybody else was like average. We were just at a different level from the rest.
Got it. Thanks for expanding on that. You said you wrote 5 books. I'm curious, which one was the most fun for you to write that you really enjoyed, and why?
Most fun. So I never wanted to be a writer. I didn't ever wake up thinking I wanted to be a writer. So the first book I wrote, Double Double, was a request from my speakers bureaus that wanted to have a bigger marketing piece to raise my fees. And my speaking fees are now 30,000 plus travel. So we took my speaking fees up because of that. I had coaching clients that wanted more of the information, like they wanted more of what was in my head so they could have their employees read it. But it was a lot of work. I then wrote 3 books with a company called Scribe. It used to be called Book in a Box. And their process was so easy that they would just interview me, about 6 interviews over the course of about 3 or 4 weeks. And they would record everything I say and transcribed it all. And they pulled all the content together for me and kept asking questions to build it all out. So I was able to write 3 of my books, Meeting Suck, Free PR, and Vivid Vision, in just a really elegant, easy way, and have it all be me. And I had a partner on a book as well, Hal Elrod. He and I co-authored The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs together. And that was fun just because I got to partner with such an amazing human and have a partner on a process. I wouldn't say any of them were fun.
Although it sounds like you enjoyed Scribe, that Scribe made it easier to, like, they were doing the extracting out of what's in your head and organizing it, and you got to just talk to them about what you knew.
Yeah, that was the group. That was an easy process for me, and there were still some pushbacks on like design elements and some of the flow and some of the content, making sure it sounded and felt like me. But it took a lot of the heavy weight off my shoulders. It was much like painting a house, right? Like I need my house painted, but I don't need to be the one who does it, right? And then I need to make money as a university student, but I didn't want to paint houses, so I hired people to paint houses. It needs to be done. It needs to be done, but not by me.
Which of the books has the most sales or has the most traction, do you feel, has the most attention around it?
They're all Vivid Vision right now is selling a lot. We sold 8,000 copies in the last couple of months. It's selling a ton. And Mind Valley just hired me to produce a course for them that they're rolling out in a week. So when Mind Valley rolls out this Vivid Vision quest, that one's going to be a really big seller. Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs does well because Hal's brand was really strong. So I'm the second best selling series in that whole series of books. His, and then he's got about 15 in the series, and mine's the best selling. So that's been fun. But for me, they're a brand building exercise. It's almost like having our signs out all over the city or having our trucks parked somewhere. There's nothing fun about going out and putting signs all day, but when you have all the signs and the phone rings, that's fun. So it's the byproduct of what my books have done for me that's been fun.
I gotta hold that up. You mentioned Vivid Vision, and for those that are listening, I have it in my hand showing Cam. I haven't read it yet. I have to tell on myself.
Well, you know here's something that's interesting about Vivid Vision. It's a system that we were never taught at College Pro Painters, but it's similar in a way that we had to sell the homeowner on how amazing their home was going to look after we painted it. And if they could see it and could feel it and were excited about it, we could then teach our team how to paint it and make it come true. Vivid Vision is how to do that with a business or your life. But a lot of my systems, a lot of my tools, frankly, is the stuff that I learned and was taught from years at College Pro. College Pro was truly a real world MBA for me, which was actually the recruiting material back in the late 80s, was get a real world MBA and earn $10,000 this summer.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Rich, while we're on the subject of books, I don't know if you saw it. I saw it on LinkedIn, Cameron. A picture of Richard Branson looked like in his library with Double Double on the shelf. Did you see that?
That is a picture of me on Necker Island. And it's I can show it on a share screen. It doesn't matter. But yeah, it's Richard Branson has a copy of Double Double on his island, and it's a bunch of my friends that have gone there. But when I was writing Double Double, one of my former clients, Yannick Silver, asked Richard if he would write the front cover testimonial, and he was considering it. And then Seth Godin said he would write the front cover. So I put Seth's name on the front cover, but Richard got a copy of the book, and it was on his shelf in the library.
That's got to feel great.
I don't think he read it. I'm pretty sure a friend of mine brought it there and put it on the shelf in the library.
He's just like Rich. He doesn't read it yet.
Well, at least it wasn't photoshopped in his library. Like that. No. It's actually there.
It was really there. Yeah, no, it was actually there.
I don't want to linger too long on the book side, but I do want to ask for the benefit of our listeners or those watching on YouTube, what would be a quick few steps around vivid vision that someone could practice if they don't happen to pick up your book that may also intrigue them to pick up your book? What could somebody do?
Go on YouTube and look up Cameron Herold, Your Vision Statement Sucks, or Cameron Herold Vivid Vision, and look up for a video. You'll see my third TEDx talk that I did is around the vivid vision concept, and it'll give them like an 18-minute video that they can watch that'll really fast forward it for them.
That's great.
That makes it nice and easy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and by the way, if ever you do get a check in the mail, or maybe you're probably not gonna come in the mail, hopefully they pay you in Bitcoin or some other coin. I have reached out to Scribe and I've had a consultation with them, and I told them that I heard about them from you on some of the stuff you've put out there, and I was very intrigued by their methodology. So trying to cross that chasm for myself and get there at some point. But you've inspired me from some of the stuff you've done and how easy you talked about the process and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's just easier. Like, one thing for me, I think I really pulled again out of College Pro Painters is if a system exists and it's been tested, just fucking use the system. Like, why do I have to figure out some other way to do it? So if there's a process in place that helps you write books quickly, use that process, hire that group, instead of wasting all the time and energy and money doing something you're not great at, right? Delegate everything except genius. So for me, I keep trying to plug in all of these kind of missing people to do it for me versus me having to do it all.
Absolutely. If I can, to kind of take it to the next step of something you started, I guess, in the most recent times, a COO Alliance. Always hear about CEO clubs and entrepreneurs, and you obviously the Second in Command podcast. Talk to us a little bit more about what the COO Alliance is and what you're doing in that respect.
Sure. So I recognize that there were a lot of organizations and networks and mastermind communities for the entrepreneur, right? We've got YPO, the Young Presidents Organization, the Entrepreneurs Organization, Vistage, Genius Network, Maverick, Baby Bathwater, all these amazing groups for entrepreneurs. And then there were groups for marketers and lawyers and engineers and trade associations, but there was never a dedicated group that was there for that second in command. Whether it's a president or a vice president or COO, it's truly the second in command to the CEO. So we created this organization called the COO Alliance. You need at least 5 million in revenue or greater to qualify. You must be the second in command to the CEO. We've got members now from 17 countries. And we have a 3-hour event online every month that they come on to with one guest speaker, a couple of members presenting, and then breakouts and group discussions, all related to a theme every month. And then we have 3 in-person events every year that they can elect to come to and come to participate in those as well.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been really successful. We've got a positive 83% net promoter score. Our biggest client is about 1.2 billion in revenue. And then I think the mean is around 40 million is kind of the average size company, about 40 million.
Gotcha. So just to paraphrase what I just heard there, over $5 million in revenue, second in command, meaning you're reporting directly to the CEO or president of the company, and you do multiple, whether it be virtual sessions and 3 in-person sessions they can elect to go to. And I'm assuming there's a whole bunch of community info share, networking, all that stuff.
All the stuff that happens in between events as well. We have a closed private Slack channel and a lot of member kind of contributions in between events and during events.
Okay. And talk, I'm sure you have a ton of testimonials of this, but if I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about, hey, this might be a good group for me, what's the biggest thing that one gains from this? Is it the knowledge, the network? What's the biggest?
Well, there's two things that are gained. And so we just added 21 new members last month. So there's 2 things that are gained. For the COO, they finally feel like they have their tribe. They have their group of people that they can learn from and connect with, that they're not alone in their role. And they recognize that their entrepreneur is usually a little crazy. So they've got a group of other people that recognize their entrepreneur is crazy, and they can figure out how to help this crazy person they love so much grow the business. The benefit for this CEO is they know that someone is helping to grow their second in command. They know that we obsess about that group. They know that we know that group. You know, I was a COO multiple times. Like, I really understand it. So for me, it's not like I'm doing it just to make a buck. Like, it's a real big need, and I understand the target. Like, I understand the people.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I know, Rich, within, even your perspective of, working within your organization, I'm sure you could see a lot of value in terms of, the CEOs driving the business, but then, the other person, the COO there, or the second in command, or others that are in command. Sometimes there's multiple people that are in that box operationally, right?
Yeah, so we take the one, so there's multiple people reporting to the CEO. We take the one that would be running the company if the CEO was sick for 6 months. That's kind of our little test, right? So some cases it's the COO, some cases CFO, some cases they have IT reporting, but it's really whoever the CEO would consider to be second in charge, the two I see.
Cam, in this conversation, you occur to me as very eloquent, very confident. You're very, you have a lot of things that you can access from memory. I'm curious to dig on that, on what's something you've changed your mind on that was fairly substantial, that you were confident on, and then you switched positions on.
I'll answer that. Let me also answer why I maybe have that confidence or that ability to speak.
Yeah, please.
I was groomed as an entrepreneur. And one of the skills my dad taught the three of us was the ability to think on our feet and speak clearly and do public speaking. So we were doing public speaking competitions in grade school. He would make us stand in front of the family, and he'd give us 3 random items, like a guitar, a chair, and a water bottle. And we had to tell a story standing up in front of my brother and sister about somebody who decided to come into the home, and they were playing guitar and they spilled their water bottle on the carpet. And we'd have to tell this stupid story. So it gave us the ability to think clearly and articulate. And then I also recognized that speaking on stages was a good way to get our brand out there for all the companies I was building. And then people were paying me to do it, and I was good at it. It just kind of became, that where I struggle is the.
By the way, my kids are in trouble tonight. You just made it so my kids are in trouble. I am pledging right now.
Fun.
Yeah, I will take them. I'm going to give them 3 items, and I'm going to ask them to tell a story in it and do it as confidently as I can. I love that.
It's super fun. Where I struggle is the small networking events. I really don't like the small 20-person networking or the small dinner party or the cocktail parties. I really hyperventilate at those situations. I'm much more comfortable being on a stage than I am, and again, we learned that at College Pro Painters, right? I had to run, like, I trained Rod Larmont, who became president. I taught him how to run his business. Like, we did so many classroom sessions and teaching sessions and coaching sessions, you had to be good at it, right? Anyway, so that's something I've changed my mind on. Well, I'm in the process of changing my mind on coaching. After coaching so many COOs or CEOs for 14 years, I'm really putting all my effort into my course, the Invest in Your Leaders course, and then also into my COO Alliance, and just moving more into that one-to-many model versus the one-to-one model. I used to see myself more as like semi-retired, and coaching was a great way to get paid and do well. But it's all of a sudden become, as the rest of my businesses have really grown, it's become a bit of a weight, because I take 10 weeks vacation every year. So when I go away on vacation, if I have to tell my clients I can't coach them, then I have to give up money. It's just become this complicated thing. So it's not that I don't love it, but it is going to take up time. And I think of everything. I only have 3 resources in my companies. I have people, like my team, and I have time in terms of days or weeks in front of me, and I have money. And I need to get the highest return on investment for those 3 things. And currently, the amount of time I'm spending, even though it's not much, it's only 23 hours a month on coaching. If I put those 23 hours a month into free time or growing other aspects of the business, my business would really scale, right? And so it's that's really what I'm changing my mind on, I think, right now.
Is going from the placing the highest value on the one-to-one coaching and transitioning to one-to-many.
Yeah, in the one-to-many model, exactly.
What's next for you as you look to the one-to-many model? I think you mentioned a couple of things in there, but I didn't catch them, but would love for you to expand on it. What's next for you on how you will impact people one-to-many and how you're thinking?
Well, so I'm launching this quest or this course with Mind Valley, which will roll out to millions and millions of their lists next week, which will be pretty huge. They're a massive, massive group. My COO Alliance is really starting to catch fire now and really scaling. So just really continuing to scale that up. Probably doing more. I'm planning to start living globally. So starting in September, I'll no longer be US resident, and I haven't been Canadian resident since 2014. So I'm actually setting up in a tax-free zone legally. As a Canadian, they don't follow you on worldwide income. So I'll be tax-based out of Barbados, but living globally. And so it's probably doing more events globally with COOs and just kind of taking advantage of, hey, I'm in Barcelona for 2 months. I'll speak in Barcelona. I'll host a group of people in Barcelona. I'll do a little bit more of that kind of stuff, globally as I travel.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'd love the course that you're putting out with Mind Valley. Is that something that's going to be publicly available or only available to that group?
No, it's publicly available, and I'm part of a much bigger tribe of thought leaders that they've paid to be experts, and I was the expert on vision that they paid to be a part of it. So yeah, we did a few days of filming, and they've done all the editing and post-production. They got a huge marketing team and budget behind it.
If our listeners wanted to go find that, how would they go about it?
If they look for Mind Valley and then look up my name on Mind Valley, they'll see it. They can also just check out the Invest in Your Leaders. It's investinyourleaders.com, and that's my course that is getting huge reviews already. It's only two months out the door, and getting really, really good reviews.
That's great. Cameron, here's one big nugget of a question. With all of the learnings you've had from all the different experiences you've had, what would you say is your biggest learning throughout your entire entrepreneurial journey that you'd like to pass on to some of our entrepreneurs as something that they can hang on to and think about?
I think it's a learning from, unfortunately, the only real downside that I got out of College Pro Painters was working hard. Like, they really found a group of people and got us to grind it out. Mm-hmm. They didn't, or I must have missed the class, but I was never taught to work smart.
Yeah.
Because I think I've really gotten away from this whole like work hard like a fly trying to get out the window. Now I look for the shortcuts for everything. So I've really had to unlearn this kind of, the grind it out and put in the hours and really work hard to get the result. Now I try to find the easier path, the shortcut, the freelancer to hire, who I can outsource it to. I call it minimum viable everything instead of minimum viable product. It's like, can I just get it done and out the door? Because everything can be a little bit more perfect, but perfect slows everything down. So it's probably a lot of learning around that and just going, God, like, it's just so much easier if I just delegate and get out of the way.
Yeah, that's a very interesting component, because you're all right. I mean, there's certainly you can work your tail off for very little return, or you can be wiser about it. And that's a very good point on the experiences that we all kind of shared at a younger age. You kind of go hard.
Yeah.
And so I love that switch that you made there.
Cameron, I have a couple of topics that I'd love to get your quick hit on, almost like it's like a fast finger round, but it'll be a fast answer round. So I want to throw a few topics out you. They all are around, what do all CEOs need to know, in your opinion, about? You ready?
Yeah. The COO.
People.
How about people? The CEOs need to know that people need way more praise than we're giving them. And CEOs need to think of people almost like their spouse. Like, you can't say, oh, my wife knows I love them. If you stop telling your wife you love her or stop telling your husband you love them, they're going to forget pretty darn quickly. So you constantly reinforce that. We as CEOs need to praise and tell our team that we love them, respect them, thank them way more frequently than we do.
Self-care.
Yeah, you're never going to get it all done. Like, you're never going to catch up. Like, stop working at 5 o'clock every day. Don't work at night. Don't work weekends. As soon as you get your list done, you're just going to have more goals anyway. So don't lie to yourself about that you're playing catch up.
Strategy.
Well, strategy is different than planning, right? Strategy is actually thinking, what if on the good, what if on the bad scenarios. Often people talk about strategic planning. Those are two very different things. Strategy is like leaning out into the future and deciding what you can make, and then deciding planning is how to actually make that come true.
Profit.
Profit should be focused on before revenue. So for me, the most important goal in every company is the employee net promoter score. Second is your customer net promoter score. Third is a dollar figure in profit. And based on how much profit, that shows you how much revenue. And because you're obsessed about employee and customer satisfaction, it's easy to get revenue and profit from that.
Learning.
Yeah, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. You always have to be growing.
Family.
None of this matters, man. This is just what we do to make money. Like, family is way more important than anything any of us do, right? Like, I'd actually rather know about you and your kids and what you're doing to connect with them than learn about your business, as you'd rather probably hear my stories of what I've been doing with family. It's everything. Like, we're all just walking each other home. None of us are getting out of this alive.
And any topic that I didn't mention in that fast round that maybe in the back of your mind you'd hope that maybe I would have, that would be a message for all CEOs.
Yeah, just don't take ourselves so fucking seriously. Like, really, right? Like, we're all so darn stressed and worked up about stuff. Like, if we can just laugh and have a good time. And I really learned that from Steve Rogers, who was the CEO of First Service. He was in a big role, and I watched him in all of it. I watched him buy the company, from Greg Clark. I took the agreement off the fax machine for First Service to buy College Pro, and I handed it to Steve. And Steve was always joking, always laughing, always having fun, always being a little bit silly. And I remembered that he seemed to be enjoying his work more than I ever was. And that's always been a lesson for me. I think we all take ourselves so seriously, and we don't need to.
Love the journey.
I really appreciate your time here today. This is great information that you shared with us. It's great to finally get a chance to connect with you after knowing of you of all these years and seeing everything you've done, and very interested in continuing to following your success and reading more of your books and connecting again in the future. So I appreciate all your time.
You're welcome, John, Rich. Thank you. Appreciate it, guys.
Stick around with Rich and I for a few more minutes while we break down the podcast.
Rich, I don't even know where to start with this one. This one is very close to you and I and our hearts, and to hear the stories between Elon Musk and his brother Kimball, and the connection to College Pro, and Cameron's connection to social currency and private currency a decade ago, and that he got in Bitcoin in 2004, Ethereum, I think in 2017, he said, and just what he's doing now in terms of, Second Man podcast, the COO Alliance, his learning class that's coming out that I'd encourage everybody to take a look at. I mean, this is somebody that, we've kind of followed a little bit over the years remotely, getting a chance to spend some time with him today, and just so much there, I guess, on a personal level for us. Hopefully our audience got the same thing.
Yeah, I wish we had more time and I could have nailed him with a few more questions on the fast answer round. A few takeaways that I got: the three things that they were leaning on and got junked: strong culture and kind of a cult-like culture. Make it really a following of it. Raise your prices, get paid what you're worth, and get free PR. So not only raise your prices, but lower your overhead by not paying for the marketing. Get free PR. We didn't talk much about his book, which is, as I'm looking it up, just that, free PR.
Free PR.
Second guessing myself for a minute there, but it's free PR in itself. That he writes in that book how he went about going and getting free PR. He mentioned he had 5,200 pieces of free PR for that company.
Yeah, I mean, and about junk, right? They got 5,200 stories about a junk pickup service. When you think about it, there's a lot of companies that are doing really good things out there, but don't even try and generate the free PR. Another one of his books that we didn't talk about today that is one that's very well known is the book Meetings Suck, which I think we can all relate to. Miracle Morning, which I know that we recently jumped on Clubhouse a couple times, and Miracle Morning is one of the biggest groups out there, and groups talking about how you get your day started off on the right way. I'd really like to, I know you have the book Vivid Vision. I really want to get that myself. I'm going to start by going to that YouTube and searching Your Vision Sucks, Cameron Herold.
Yeah.
I really want to listen to that one. And the last one is Double Double, which is his first book that I'd like to dive into myself. So I'm going to get on those two very, very soon.
I wasn't kidding about grabbing one of my kids and I'm going to have him do that exercise, but the three things he talked about that he was taught by his parents. Gosh, aren't those 3 things that we want to teach our kids? Aren't those 3 things that we wish we learned? Aren't those 3 things that we want to bring to people in our business? The ability to think on your feet, speak clearly, and use public speaking, not to be afraid of public speaking. Yeah. I believe when I went to a public speaking class, I believe they said that like the number 2 thing after fear of death was public speaking.
Yeah.
And it wasn't spiders, it wasn't falling, it was public speaking, just being petrified of it. So to work that out for a child to the point where they could speak at the level that Cameron was, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. And if you take it to the company side, there's no reason why companies can't do the same thing in terms of role playing and practicing and developing talent. But what I will say, and this is a theme we talked about it, but if you had to look at it from a macro perspective, Rich, how do you create a high employee net promoter score and create a cult-like following? I heard 2 things, 2 really big things. It's who you bring on board. And to me, I think there about the interview process and the rigorousness of your interview selection process, which we had very strong at College Pro, and a lot of companies cheapen that process as they go along. So, who you bring on and the rigorousness of your process, and the second part was really creating a cult-like culture within your business, meaning to me, it's having that strong, vivid vision. It's naming things within your organization. It's knowing your core values to a T and religiously practicing the core values and repeating, almost to the point, he said, where the people who find it to be corny and not really their kind self-select out. Yes. And the people who buy in for life. And that's exactly what happened to us at College Pro for sure. Like we were bought in just like Cameron was. And creating that cult-like following is not an easy task. And if you bring in the wrong people, you're going to have a hard time.
And isn't that the culture that everybody wants? A culture where high performers want to stay and people that don't fit in average performers want to leave. They opt out. You know, I'll add 2 more things on it as you were talking and I was listening and thinking, and 2 more things I heard about creating that culture. When I did the fast answer round, and the first one I said was people, he said more praise. People need more praise. That was the first thing of all the things he could say around the topic of people. People could use more praise than you think. Yeah, and then the other one was when I asked what could all COOs take, and he said, don't take yourself so seriously. Yeah. Feel free to joke around, laugh, have fun at what you're doing. It's okay. It'll be okay. We're just shepherding each other to the end. We're working together doing that. Like that is just those 4 things, the 2 you reviewed and the 2 I just brought up. I mean, that alone, what a culture that would be.
Yeah, no question. And back to even the mention you said about praise, it relates back to culture. The reason why people feel good and want to stay in a culture is because they feel great in it. And you feel great in it when you're getting a lot of praise and recognition and things of that nature, right? And you know, I think the only other part I'll say on the fast round that I loved was you're never going to get it all done. We're all busy. We all got things to do. As soon as you get one goal, you add another goal. You're never going to get it all done, but the ability to have time for yourself, have time for your family, and he even talked a little bit about, you know, it's not working hard, it's working smart. So the fact that you're busy working a lot of hours doesn't necessarily, you know, make you more efficient and have a more successful life, spending time with your family and friends and doing things you enjoy and spending time with your kids and things of that nature. So that really came out to me because there's an endless amount of things we could do to keep this week going until Sunday at midnight, but that's not really what life's all about.
Yeah, I love that.